Good evening, guys, and welcome to the February 27, 2024 business meeting and the property tax law hearing. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to leave the business meeting and enter into the real property tax law public hearing? Ms. Saron, second. Ms. Pignataro, all in favor? Opposed? And just so everyone's aware, on the back, you'll see all the presentations are printed out right by the violins, cellos. At this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney.
We'll turn it over to Mr. Frontario, who will handle the hearing part of this evening.
Thank you. And we just have a very short PowerPoint. The picture's worth 1,000 words. Notwithstanding. So good evening and welcome to our public hearing. This public hearing is in regard to the senior citizen and persons with disabilities and limited income property tax exemption. Property tax law 467 and 459C respectively, and the income definition law change that recently happened. So, just an important side note. Back on December 13th of 2022, our board, this board right here, passed a resolution accepting the new property tax qualification for income. It had been for many years on a sliding scale from $37,000 to $45,400, and a $37,000 income would get you a 50% reduction in your assessment for your school taxes. Recognizing that that number was, antiquated to many respects, when the law changed so that it could be from $50,000 to $58,400, our board, as a show of good faith, passed a resolution accepting those new income parameters. So that's where we are at the moment, and that had been set in stone for many years. So what the purpose of this public hearing is about is in November of 2023, the law changed to definition of income for qualifying for the senior citizen and persons with disabilities and limited income property tax exemption. So, and one of the changes is the distributions received from individual retirement accounts and individual retirement annuities would be excluded from coming to be determined for qualifying for the exemption. So in some cases that could be substantial, it could be ongoing, could be a one-shot deal, and if it was, a person could reapply in a given year if they didn't qualify. But with the board would have to, in order for this option to not be included, not be considered for the purposes of qualifying, the board has to pass a resolution. And that resolution is what the board is being asked to adopt tonight. Eliminating this from the income calculation, meaning those IRAs or annuities, would basically provide individuals with financial wherewithal who really would enjoy the benefit at the expense of other people who could really use it. So that's what basically this is about. So again, if the board does not act, the IRA distributions and the annuities would be eliminated from deciding if somebody were qualifying. By passing the resolution, we're saying that it does not qualify. Any questions on that?
Thank you, Mr. Frontario. Any questions from trustees? Any community members or any questions on this? Not hearing any. Thank you so much, Mr. Frontario. Appreciate it. Yeah. Can I make a motion to leave the business meeting and enter? Oh, sorry. Can I have a motion to leave the real property tax law public hearing and return to our business meeting? Does I have a motion? Ms. Pignataro, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor? So we finished that pretty quick, so we're just going to give people about 9 minutes so we can start our regular meeting at 7 like we anticipated. And posted.
If the resolution is included in the board agenda.
Yeah. Your mic's on.
Good evening, guys, and welcome to the February 27th business meeting. If you're just joining us, we had our property tax law hearing prior. Just a few announcements before we get into the board meeting tonight. We are joined by 6 of our trustees, our superintendent of schools, Dr. Timothy Harney, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, Mr. Robert Haas, our interim assistant superintendent for finance and operations, Mr. Luis Frontero, our district legal counsel, Mr. Edward McCarthy, our district clerk, Suzanne Benetti, and our student rep, Alexandra Belachos, who we can get a round of applause, did an awesome job in her performance recently. So how about a big round of applause for our star, Cinderella. As always, there are 2 opportunities for the community to participate during the Board of Ed meeting. The first is just before the board takes up its agenda, and the second follows a disposition of all agenda items. As always, if you'd like to speak, we ask that you come to the podium. Please use the mic. You must state your name and where you live. If you are not a person who lives in Bayport Blue Point, you must be voted in by a majority vote of the board, or you must be an employee of the school district. We ask that you keep those comments to approximately 3 minutes, and as always, in the back, you'll see we're live streamed, and it'll go on board docs and the website after. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at BBP School District, or Facebook at Bayport Blue Point SD, and on X, BBP Schools, and Dr. Harney's always looking to get his numbers up. You can follow Dr. Harney at BBP Soup. We'll open it up for any community, new or old business. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the time in advance. My name is Rocky. I brought my entire fun family here, so thank you for accommodating us. That's Allison there. This is Emery, Brody, and Finley. We're here on Edgewater, so I wanted to state where we live. We've been in the community now for 10 years, and we purposely chose here because of the district, wonderful district. I want to thank everyone here in advance of this conversation for all the tireless nights and hard work you put in, so thank you for that. The reason we're here is we wanted to talk about the UPK program, and specifically, we know that you're investigating whether or not this UPK program could be extended to the entire community. This year, unfortunately, my son Brody wasn't eligible for the program due to space limitations, so we just wanted to come here, raise awareness on behalf of the community that we are indeed involved, and we want to be active members of the community to help you get to a resolution. Really no more than that, just to raise awareness. I think maybe next board meeting there'll be a vote. So again, we wanted to just bring this attention and state that we really do care about this community. We want to see that educational program brought on to the entire district. And in particular, we wanted to let this little guy talk, if he wanted to. We all know as parents, and you too, I know. We all know as parents that kids can be sometimes irrational, right? Sorry, Emery, that's true. But sometimes they have really great insight when they say things. So when Brody found out he wasn't going to be part of this program, he said something that really struck a chord with us. And Brody, do you want to say to everybody what you told me when you weren't part of the program? You want Emery to do it? All right, go ahead. You can do it. Yes. Just say, so when Brody wasn't part of the program, when he found out.
Brody said he just wants to be with his friends.
Yeah, so he really just wants to be with his friends next year. So we wanted you to hear that because it really struck a nerve with us. And we know the program's really exceptional, but we just want to see that extended. So on behalf of the family and the community, we thank you for your hard work and hope we can find a resolution.
Well, just want to say thank you guys so much for coming up here. We do appreciate it. And like you mentioned, there will be a conversation at the next board meeting to see if there will be an expansion of the pre-K. But thank you guys so much. We know it's not easy to come up here and to get on the mic. So it's so nice to meet you guys, and thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Say thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Hi, folks. How are you? Michael Bamberger, new Bayport resident as of a couple of years ago. Live at 193 Oakwood, and so I also like. I'm Freya's dad. Yeah, there you go. Freya's dad and Hildy's dad. So I wear that badge with pride. My daughter just turned 2, and my second one's 9 months. I don't know if this is a forum for questions, but I really just as a new dad, I'm kind of learning as I go. Like, what is the current state of the UPK program? I'm sorry?
If you just give Dr. Harney 1 minute after the community has questions, he's going to actually go over it in his superintendent update so everyone will have the numbers in the conversation about next time.
Okay, no, will do, thank you. And, just on a personal note, before, I grew up in Northport, and, before my wife and I bought a house here, like, nobody really knew where Bayport was, and then so I'm kind of first generation Bayport, and I feel so fortunate that we found this community. And so, I will do absolutely anything to make sure that my two girls have a happy and healthy childhood. We're on the school line around Academy, and all the kids are really happy, and everybody seems very well taken care of. So, like the previous spokespeople, I'm going to keep a real close eye on the UPK program, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my kids get in and just make sure they have the best education possible. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, look forward to being involved as well.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming out tonight. How are you?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Sean Fian. I live in Blue Point. Thank you for your time. Thank you for my time. Last meeting, I spoke up about some busing requests to be put into the budget, and it seemed there might have been a little misunderstanding about what it was I was requesting. What it is I was explaining was that we have a shuttle bus to bring the kids back to the school. I know some people thought I was talking about a late bus. That's not what it is. It's a shuttle bus to be brought back to the school for any sports or any extracurricular activities that are brought away from the school. So with that being said, that's all I wanted to make clear, to make sure everybody knew that's what it is I was trying to request, to see if we can put into the budget, which I know we have a couple more meetings discussing that, and we'll see where it goes from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Harney is also going to talk about the busing in his update as well. Thank you so much for coming out. How are you? Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Christina. I'm a resident of Bayport. I live with my family on Gillette Avenue. My son, Aiden, he's 4 years old, so I just wanted to piggyback upon what the other families were sharing about UPK. Of the 111 eligible families this year, unfortunately, my son Aiden was one of the 33 who was not afforded a spot at this time. We really appreciate Dr. Harney reaching out and letting us know that there is additional state funding available. My husband and I are very curious about how the district could utilize that funding, and if it's possible to offer a seat to every eligible child in the district. I'm an educator myself. I work at Stony Brook University in the Educational Opportunity Program. The program where I work is all about equity in education, and I know this district is as well. If we could scale up this program and really work together, I think that we would be creating and just strengthening our wonderful, wonderful community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any other new business or old business? Not hearing any, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney for a superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. So I'm going to do kind of my normal update, and then I'll talk a little bit about busing, then I'll do a little update on pre-K, and then give you more information on that. So just a couple of things. Many of you may have seen that we had posted for 2 of our principal positions, meaning the high school and Sylvan Avenue Elementary. We are moving along in the process. Just over the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of committee meetings. We are now starting to get towards to the end. We have a couple of really nice candidates, but we still have some more interviewing to go. So I just really want to give everybody an update on that. So we are moving along with that. Just as Mr. Miller had spoken about, I would really like to congratulate Allie as well. I got to see her whole cast, a number of times. They did a tremendous job. Hopefully you got to see the show, because they really put a ton of effort into it. So thank you for all your efforts and everything you do, and good luck to you next year, because you're going to do great, okay? And if you didn't catch one of the musicals, it is getting close to spring concert time. I can't believe I'm saying that. So probably between the months of March, April, May, June, you can probably find one almost every night. You can find the concert, so you'll be able to hear Ally if you like to, and along with some of her classmates and obviously all the other schools. So they are coming, so look out for them. Just congratulations too, as well, to both our boys basketball team. They are playing tonight. They have not started yet, so if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I may be getting a score. That may be it. Also, and then congratulations to the girls. They play tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. The boys are at Pat Med right now, and the girls will be at Center Reach tomorrow. Boys are playing John Glenn, and the girls are playing Mount Sinai. So we wish them the best of luck and congratulates them on a great season. So far, they're both in the semifinals. So we're looking forward to that. Just as an also, spring sports are truly right around the corner. They are going to be kicking off on March 11th. So it's incredible that we are really at the end of February right now, but we are, that's when the spring season opens. Let me do a couple of things. Let me move then to one of the questions at the last meeting that was given to us had to do with the busing. And we did take the busing as bringing it back to school. We knew what you had meant at that time. So we've done a preliminary, and if we're looking at the 3 sports, and this is really for the board, everyone is hearing this really for the first time, is you're talking about swimming, you're talking about golf, and you're talking about bowling, and you're going across the 3 seasons. It's an estimate cost, and we're still doing a little bit more, of somewhere between about $110,000 and $140,000, so people are aware. That depends on whether it's a 3-hour or 4 hours, depending on if it's a match, game, or whatever may be going on that day. So that is a rough estimate that we were able to do in the last couple of weeks, but we're continuing to look on that, so just people have that. Any questions about that?
So Dr. Harney, you mentioned it was for the 3 sports, for golf, bowling, and swim. They're bused off-site, just to clarify, they're bused off-site from the high school, but currently the parents pick up?
Correct.
Okay. About how many students are on all of those teams would we be able to look into, just so that we have an idea?
Yeah, I was actually able to gather some of that recently, and bowling is only on the boys' side, so it's about 12 to 15, depending on the year, okay? In the golf, you have both golf and swimming, you have both the girls and the boys. Golf is roughly somewhere around 20, 22 per team, okay? And then swimming is about 7 to 10 per team, okay? And they're all going from, really, they're all coming from here really into Sayville. We share the teams, we share the swimming with Sayville, bowling is ours, and golf is ours. Okay?
And if we did want to look into proceeding with that, would we be able to have kind of a look at what that would, I know you mentioned about 110 to 140 into the budget, but as to kind of where it would be and what that might look like for us if we were to move forward with that?
Yeah, we can do that. I think as we talk about that, and then we even talk about pre-K movement, and we're talking about overall budget, I think everything needs to be considered. And at some point, I will be asking probably the board also to give us some direction on what else you might want us to look at. Because obviously anything we start to add, now Mr. Frontario will be doing his 5th budget presentation tonight. And right now we are hovering around a budget to budget increase of about 3.51. We were able to reduce that a tiny bit since the last time we met. Basically it's 0.06% is what we were able to reduce it. And then the tax levy, or the allowable tax levy right now is about 3.912. So if we continue to add things that we need to know so we can take into consideration, but also then we'd be looking at, is there something that we would trade for something? So we'd have to do that. But which kind of takes me into the pre-K. So pre-K is, as you mentioned, it is a wonderful program, and we are very, very, very proud of it. The staff that we have working in it within our buildings here, they do a tremendous job. And the staff that we have working with us over at the PatMed YMCA do a tremendous job. And a lot of preparation had gone into this. If you had followed over the years, this is currently our second year of pre-K. I would say that the planning process for it, when we originally were doing it, probably started about 4 or 5 years ago. And if you remember, I had done, I don't know how many presentations on enrollment. We continuously talked about enrollment and staff. And one of the things at that time is we knew with the declining enrollment, we had an opportunity. There are a number of districts that will outsource their pre-K. We wanted to do a lot of our own internally. And with that, as I said, the staff down there has done a tremendous job. But saying that is, when we had planned for it a number of years ago, we were taking a look at staff, numbers, rooms, availability. So a lot of things go into it as you're thinking about it. So when we started with 3 classrooms, 54 students, and then we had 1 classroom over at the CBO. If you recall, by law, we have to give a certain percentage of the money that comes to us via the state to the CBO. So we've been able to do that, and we've been doing that for the last 2 years now. This past year, and there's probably a couple of things out there that I want to make sure I clarify as well, is in the last year, or recently, we had the lottery that Mr. Haas had held. I guess it was that Monday, February 5th, when obviously the numbers were around 111, if I'm correct, of people that were interested, which is by far the highest number we've had in going into our 3rd year. They've grown a little bit over the last few years, but this year was a big jump. You know, we were roughly at, if I remember, the first year was in the low 80s, and then going into this year, it might have been around low 90s, thereabouts, or high 80s. And this year, we obviously had a major jump or interest, which is really probably attributed to the program that's in place. The teachers, as I said, have done tremendous. One of the things out there is we do get pre-K aid. One of the things you probably heard me talk about years ago was, as we were planning it, is we are not guaranteed pre-K aid from year to year. Now, in the last 2 years, they've actually raised the amount that they give you for pre-K, the total amount, let me say that. So that is a good sign. And you hear the state talking all the time about a universal pre-K. They're continuously talking about that. But there are many districts who, one, don't have the space or the funding for it. And the reason I bring up the funding to it, which is a concern, is people look at it and say, oh, you get all that money for pre-K. The money we are allocated for pre-K is $5,400 per student, okay? That is the same number that was allocated in 2006, all right? So that number, in terms of what a district is given per student, is the same. And that's the same regardless if they're in district or going to a CBO. That doesn't make a difference, all right? The money is the money. There's also a piece out there where people say, well, if you haven't used all your pre-K aid, that the district gets that. That is not accurate at all. The only money the district receives from the state is based on the number of seats you have. So we have 54 seats right now, currently. So 54 times 5,400 is the aid that we are receiving. Though you may see in the paper that number is larger, that is not necessarily the case what we are receiving. We're going, and then also the CBO, which we have 18 students there now, they get 18 times 5,400 as well. So just from a monetary piece so people can understand that. When you're looking at our classes within the district, and these are the things that I'm working on now, which I'll have more for the 12th. So when we had spoken on, after the lottery, I had actually brought to the February 6th board meeting is that because of the interest, I wanted to look into the pre-K more. We wanted to look at it more in the district. And obviously, of the blessing of the board, they said, yes, go ahead. So we're trying to look into that. But to do that, I also want to look at everything because we're talking about other requests. We're talking now about a busing request. We're talking about things that we're trying to do programmatically. Obviously, pre-K that plays into that. If we add another class, we're trying to figure out, though we were given additional money, regardless of that, remember, let's say if you go a class size of 20 you do 20 times 5,400, which is 110,000, 112,000. I'm doing this off the top of my head right now. That is not the cost of a class, okay? That is not a cost of a class. Whether you have a teacher in there, you have an aide, you have an assistant, we have nurse for there, so we have other things. So there would be an additional cost that would be taken into consideration. Also, the other thing that needs to be considered as we're looking at this, as I said, you never know what's going forward. You have to think about that just in case. The last piece is that the money we were allocated this year, if you just look at what was in the paper, it was $580,000, $580,600. That's what it was. If you divide that by 5,400, okay, that's 107.5. We had 111 people have an interest. That means the district would need to pay, because the money would go to the CBO most likely first, is what we believe. Then the district would have to pay for each of those individual students as well. So that's something we'd have to look at as well. So that's why I said there's a lot that is going into this. And obviously, we know the program is tremendous, and it's something that we wanted to look to see if we can expand, but we just want to make sure we do everything right. So that's kind of everything that we've been looking at. Also with that, we're talking about, we have to look at all overall staff, because that plays into it as well. If we're building something internally, do we have the staff to also fill the positions? And again, at what cost would that be as we're looking at this? So these are all things. So Mr. Fronteri and I are hoping to be in the budget presentation for the 6th is really, if you remember last year I did a staff overview in the budget for the first time. I would like to do that again. I'm hoping for the 12th. If not, it'll be last year we did it the last one in March. We're trying to move it up a little bit earlier so we can make some, if you need more information, I have time to get you more information, so we're looking to do that. So we're hoping to have that for you on the 12th, and then also part of that would be really giving you more costs on what it would actually cost as a district in terms of if we were to try to add and expand pre-K, which again, as I said, we all believe is a good idea. We just want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible. That's basically it. I'll take any questions from anybody.
Thank you, Dr. Harney. Appreciate it. Moving on to our student delegate report. Ms. Velichos, how are you tonight?
Hi, thank you. And thank you guys for being so nice about the play. Okay, so this week at Academy Street, they're celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday with a Spirit Week, and they're reading his books. Also at Academy Street, there's an author visit from Renee Felice Smith and Chris Gabriel, authors of Hugo and The Impossible Thing. Also at Academy Street is the Academy Street Talent Show, which is Friday at 6 p.m. at the middle school. At the middle school, congratulations to our BBP Robo Phantoms on their performance during their first LEGO League Long Island Qualifier number 4 on Saturday at Huntington High School. Both Bayport Blue Point Robo Phantom teams qualified for the Long Island Championships. Wow. Also at the middle school, Mr. Bernie Firstspan from the Nassau County Tolerance and Holocaust Museum came to James Wilson Young to speak with the 6th graders about the Holocaust on Monday. Mr. Firstspan is the son of Holocaust survivors. That's all I have for this week. I hope everybody had a nice break. Back to you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. At this time, we'll give it back to Dr. Harney to introduce our building condition survey done by Mr. Bortsfield.
So we have 2 presentations tonight. One is both Mr. Bortsfield, the Director of Facilities, and BBS. We have representatives from BBS, Gary Robertson and Fred Sieber, here with us tonight. So thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. So every 5 years by law, you have to do a building condition survey, which then we have to submit to the state. So R5 is basically up now. So they have spent a year, I don't know that, at least kind of trying to put this together. And this is really trying to take a look at the district on a whole in terms of areas that you do it all the time is what the next 5 years of things, if you're going to try to address or items in there, that's kind of what the purpose of this is. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bortsfield and Mr. Robertson and Mr. Seba.
evening. So, I just want to, this report was prepared by myself, Mr. Louis Frontario, Mr. Fred Siva, and Mr. Gary Robertson, with collaboration with all people within the district. Excuse me. So the introduction, this is an overview of the building condition survey. This is the importance of maintaining a safe and functional educational facilities. The purpose of this BCS is to analyze the current condition of the buildings and guide the district in creating a 5-year capital facilities plan. The intent of this 5-year plan is to identify the current conditions of each of the Bayport Blue Point Union Free School District's facilities, and to serve as tools for the district to effectively manage the capital needs and goals. The objective of the building condition survey is to assess the physical conditions of the district's buildings, identify areas requiring maintenance, repair, and renovations, and to ensure compliance with safety standards and regulations. It also provides data for informed decision-making and resource allocation. The methodology. This was a collaboration between BVS Architects, the Buildings and Grounds Department, and school administrators with a comprehensive inspection of all the building components, systems, in each building. The evaluation criteria includes structural integrity, safety features, HVAC systems, and accessibility. The utilization of standardized assessment tools and protocols. The survey components include the structural integrity assessment, mechanical systems evaluation, electrical systems evaluations, plumbing and sanitary systems assessments, accessibility compliance review, and environmental quality review. The reporting and data analysis. There was a compilation of the survey findings into a detailed report, analysis of data to prioritize maintenance and renovation projects, and then it was integration of the BCS data into a 5-year capital facilities plan. The impacts and benefits is to improve the safety and functionality of educational spaces, enhance the learning environment for students and educators, and prevention of costly repairs through proactive maintenance, and allocation of resource based on data-driven decision-making. So the next 6 slides are going to be representative examples from the building condition survey. I'm not going to read through the entire one, but I guess we could go, give you a minute or two to look through. But these are the big ticket items that we came across when we were doing the building condition survey. So the first one was the high school. We're on the middle school now. No, it's all right. You'll notice that the roofs are the big ticket item at the top pretty much. I mean, they're at the end of their useful life. It doesn't mean that they're all going to fail right away, but I just want the board to be aware that we are getting to the end of the lifespan of the roofs. We still have a couple of years left on the warranties, but this is a 5-year plan, so I would imagine towards the end of the 5 years, we'll be looking to get some roofs done. The next slide is Blue Point Elementary. Academy Street Elementary School. Next school is Sylvan Avenue Elementary School. And the last page is this one's actually kind of a new one we had to break out now. It's the Maintenance and Transportation Board. In the past, I guess it was gathered with the high school, but the State Education Department made us classify this as a separate building. So the future and direction. We are going to continue refinement of assessment methodologies and tools. We're going to emphasize on sustainability, energy efficiency in the buildings and building, design, and operations, and the integration of technology for real-time monitoring and predictive maintenance. So this is the total cost of the 5-year capital facilities plan. Yeah, the total is $72,622,260. In conclusion, I just want to recap the importance of the building condition survey and appreciation for the collaboration between everyone in the district and stakeholders that helped us make this building condition survey and ultimately the 5-year capital plan. And a commitment to ensuring a safe, healthy, equitable learning environment for all students. And if there's any questions from the board.
Any trustees with any questions? Any community members with any questions?
I had a question.
Oh, Mr. Johnson?
So I just want to make this clear. This is just like a, hey, this, because it seems like a pretty lofty wish list, if you ask me. We're halfway through a $30 million bond paying it off, so it's those pretty big numbers to throw out there.
If I remember right, and Mr. Miller, you may remember this, or Mr. Johnson is, or maybe Mr. Robinson, you might remember this, when the original bond came about, it was based on a lot of it was based on the previous condition survey, right? And that started in the 70 million-ish too, correct? Okay. 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 So just so people if they didn't hear that at home, is the last building from 2015, is that right? Was about 40 million, and then the original bond, which was what do you mean? Oh, I know that. I'm sorry. Is then the original discussion for the bond was in the 70 million-ish, which we ended up just under 30 million, was the 29.9. That's what it was. So these numbers have been seen before.
Yeah.
That's really what I want to point out.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the concerns I have just being here a little long on the board, I look at the turf fields, $3 million. When we sold that bond for the turf fields, we ended up spending half of that to install the entire fields. That means site work and everything. And it was pitched to us that in 10 years you would need to replace, meaning it would be significantly less to replace because it would just be the surface of the rubber, and the turf would need to be surfaced. But the majority of the work that went in there was the site work that wouldn't have to be done again. So when I see $3 million, I'm like, I don't know if the public would have voted on a turf field to say, yeah, let's do this. And guess what? In 10 years, double the cost. 10 years, double it again. I mean, I don't know how legitimate these numbers are, but that's kind of concerning to me that it's a lot of money, $3 million for 10, and we spent 1.5 million on the original ones, and we're getting 10 years out of them. And so that's just one thing. The roofs bother me because we had Johnson Controls come in, and we put tons of solar panels on these roofs. So I don't know, what true condition are in. Every year I feel like we're replacing boilers, but now we've done a bunch of them with the EPC, and the lighting fixtures we did with the EPC, but now I'm seeing lighting fixtures and boilers. So I guess it's just me being uninformed, but it just seems like a lot of stuff that we've been working on, or stuff that I thought was A-okay, is in this. That's some of my concerns.
I think you got to remember as you're doing this, right, is every time we're talking about whether it be a boiler or something, you're multiplying that by X amount of buildings that you have as well, right? And as everything is, and I don't know if Mr. Robbins or Mr. Seaver, you wanted to speak to the piece about the turf. My guess is it's different times now than it was when the turf was originally put in, and no one would have guessed that with anything in terms of prices, but I don't know if you want to comment on that, or I don't remember the exact cost of the turf in the first one.
Good evening. So I think regarding the turf, what we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years is a very steep increase in the price of synthetic turf fields. It happened during COVID. We assumed that once COVID was over, that those prices would drop back down again. That has not happened. They probably went up 30 or 40% in a 1 or 2 year period. Nobody can seem to explain it to us, but that's just the reality. So I think that's what's happening. The other thing to keep in mind is that all the prices that are shown in here are worst case scenario. So they're all fully loaded, which means they include contingencies and fees. They're all built in. And let's take a roof, for example. So if we redo a roof, we don't know if there's asbestos underneath there. We don't know if there's other roofing layers underneath there. That all has to be tested. So we carry money in order to account for that. We don't know if we're going to find deteriorated roof deck when we rip that roof up. So we have to put some contingency money in order to account for that. There's escalation in there because you're not going to do the work this year. There's design contingency, construction contingency if you run into something when you open the roof up. So all of those, including design fees, are all built into the numbers. So the construction cost is probably only 65 or 70% of the numbers that you see up on the screen. The rest of it is contingency, some of which is owner soft costs. And that's money that you guys will spend in attorney's fees, advertising fees, testing fees. If there is asbestos, all of those things, construction manager services, which you had on the last bond referendum, that's also built into those numbers as well. So I think that's why the numbers look larger than they are as far as being fully loaded. I think if you back out to 30 or 35% and you look at the construction costs, I think it'll be much more relatable to what you paid for the fields last time.
Any other questions?
I do.
Ms. Ron?
Thank you for providing this tonight. It's really very informative and eye-opening. I just have a question for Dr. Harney. What are the next steps after you have the survey done? How do you prioritize, and what are the next steps with that?
That's a great question. So the short answer is I have seen this about a couple of weeks before it's been here, so still trying to process it. Also, as you're taking a look at it, it's really trying to prioritize, as you said. As Mr. Bortsfield alluded to, is the reason the roofs are on here, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are being ripped up. It's basically because their warranties have come to an end. So the question is, do you do something? I believe you can try to extend it in somehow, or do you then obviously look at the roofs, right? Or are you waiting to a time when you really need to replace them? I think things that you have to start to think about is, one of the things we've talked about is, and I will bring it up again, is there, if we can start to take, if we have surplus at the end of the year, we've talked about doing a capital reserve. That is something. Something that Mr. Fronterio did 2 years ago that we didn't have is the transfer to capital, which we didn't have that as a line item. And people at that time, I know, were asking, why are we doing those? Because it adds to the budget. We know that. But it was also to try to build something into the budget, so when we needed to start to do some repairs, we can kind of look at it. So that was something, and that's what we're trying to maintain as we're going into this new year is, we were 500 last year. We're trying to keep 500 there for this year as we're going to do that. But I think you have to start to think about, and we've talked about it, is I do believe we should put on for a resolution a capital reserve. We've talked about that for years now. I think that should happen. And then, at least if we have some surplus at the end of the years, that is an area that we can start to build and start to prioritize some of our projects. The other piece, which probably no one will ever want to hear, is kind of discussion about a bond. And I'm not saying it has to be a discussion now, but we do know in 2 or 3 years, and Mr. Frontiero has, and I remember off the top of my head, we have debt coming off. So it is the time to replace debt with debt if we're going to do it, as opposed to wait, letting it drop off, and then trying to do it 3 years later. So that needs to be a consideration or a discussion, much more than tonight. We just wanted you to have this information tonight. But those are all, when you're talking about next step, things that have to be thought about. But I think in the immediate, I think we should do a capital reserve. There is no harm in doing a capital reserve. Doesn't cost a thing, it's just basically us setting that. The unfortunate part, in 3-4 minutes, you're gonna hear Mr. Frontiero and I speak about his foundation aid. We're still down 1.159 million. That hasn't changed since the last time we met. So those are all real things for us to be considering and discussing. So I don't know if I answered your question, but hopefully.
I just got one, Mike, just one more thing. So, I think it was mentioned before that the last bond was a result of this 5-year plan. We talked about looking at a bond after looking at this. Like, just kind of looking at the process, a few things I would like to see. I'm not sure if this is every 5 years. I'm trying to remember if it's every year, but I'd like to see maybe each project graded in severity. Like, what must be replaced, what needs to be replaced, what would we like to replace. The other thing is, we worked with BBS for years, and they've done an outstanding job for us in the last bond and some other projects in between. But no offense, guys, like, if this should be an independent review from another organization that wouldn't, that we wouldn't be working within a bond, because that type of independence is necessary. So we should be getting an outside perspective. This is what you got to fix, and if it does lead to a bond, then we could hire somebody like them to do the design and to manage those services. I just think, that's the one thing, if I was running a business or on my federal job side, I'd be looking at, we got to bring in an outside party that doesn't have anything to do with any projects, that can give us an independent assessment.
So that's actually a great point. The report itself, although it's not part of the presentation tonight, but the report is a 5-year plan, so it's actually broken down into 5 different priorities. So priority 1 would be something considered health and safety or code required. Priority 2 might be an educational priority or security, and you work your way all the way up to priority 5, which might be more of an aesthetics or a little bit longer term, like on your roofing. Your roofing is still under warranty, but it does come out of warranty in a couple of years, and as part of a 5-year plan, it might be something that you might want to consider over time, that at some point you're going to have to budget for it. So how do you take that into account? So it is broken up into 5 different categories, 5 different years. So it is prioritized by us, but it's prioritized from an architectural engineering standpoint. You have to look at it from an educational standpoint, because we might have something as a priority 3, and you might say, that's a priority 1 for us. We need that educational space right away. This becomes your report, and it becomes a living and breathing document, something that the district will update every year. As things get done, you cross them off the list. As things come up, you add them onto the list. As priorities change, you move them around, and you use it as a long-range planning tool. That's really the purpose of the document for you. I will tell you the buildings overall were in very good condition. The building has maintained, the district has maintained the buildings very well. The last bond referendum took care of a number of items, as well as the energy performance contract, things that you pointed out. So overall, the buildings are in good shape. But think about it. You're in the same boat that most school districts on Long Island are in. Their buildings were built in the 1950s. They're 70 years old now. So some of the original electrical, some of the original piping, some of the original units, they're just aging out, and they're going to need to be replaced. So that's why you see higher dollar amounts this time than you saw last time around. It's just due to the age of the buildings. It doesn't mean that these systems are going to fail within the next couple of years. But again, it's a long-range plan. We want everything in there so that you guys have visibility of it, so So when you start to do your long-range planning, you can see what's in there, and you can prioritize on your end. I also wanted to thank Brian and his staff and the administration because they took this report very seriously. And the process that we follow is before we walk the buildings, we send a questionnaire out to the district. And Brian took that questionnaire. He met with his maintenance personnel. He met with his head custodians. He met with the principals. We got input from the athletic director. We got input from IT. And he went through that with a fine-tooth comb. To be honest, this is probably the most comprehensive report that I have ever written based upon the input that we got back from the school district. So I want to thank Brian for that. He did a great job with meeting with people, with letting us know everything that they knew of that was a problem in the district, or even a thought of the district that they might want to do in the future. And it's all in there for your visibility and then for your prioritization. So I just wanted to thank Brian and let you know he did a great job in helping us and collaborating with us in order to develop this report.
Thank you so much. Any other trustees?
Can I say one thing, Mike, real quick? Just to clarify too, so the 72 million, by the way, does include some either-or options. So, for example, with the roofs that we just spoke about, there's a replacement option and there's a recoding option. So even though the total is 72, the reality is, and there are some examples, I'm not going to say a lot, but there are some heavier cost items that maybe an either-or. So everything has been totaled together in that 72 million, just to clarify that. So just wanted to make mention of that.
Thank you so much. I think we just have one community member with a question. Would you be able to just come up so we can get you on the mic? Thank you so much.
So talking about the turf fields, are we looking to replace the entire turf or just like the rubber beads and such that are inside the turf? For the fields, are we looking to replace the entire field or just the turf beads themselves? Sean, how you doing? The whole field?
So we only take up, well, we call it the carpet, but the actual fiber itself. The under drainage is all in good condition. That all stays. The base is all in good condition. That stays. So we're really taking up the carpet and the infill. We can sometimes reuse some of that infill when we put the field back together again. Again, it depends upon the condition. So that carpet comes out, it's recyclable. The infill that comes out is recyclable as well if we can't reuse it. And then we put brand new carpet down and new infill material in there. So it's not a complete redo. We're not going to dig down 2 feet like we did last time when the fields got installed. It's only really taking the surface off and then reinstalling it.
Okay. And if the cost of this is going to keep going up and up, as we were saying, depending on how the years go, what would the cost of possibly getting rid of the turf field and going back to a grass field and the maintenance of that cost? Is that?
I mean, I think that's
we don't have that answer now, but
Yeah, I think that's more of a conversation with the administrative team and the board. I mean, I don't know if that's
I don't know
a
if it's
conversation
possibility,
item right now, but I don't know the price on getting rid of the turf and go back to grass. That would be something we'd have to look into if we wanted to strongly consider that.
Okay. And then the different roofs and such, like you were saying, a lot of the roofs have to get replaced possibly. When was the last time the roofs were replaced? Do we know?
So real quickly, as Brian mentioned,
It's awkward.
the roofs were not all replaced at the exact same time, but I'm going to say within 3 years or so of each other. So, for example, some buildings have the majority of the roof that was replaced, the roof that was replaced at the same time, and then some sections were maybe a year or two afterwards. In general, you get a 20-year warranty on a roofing system. Some of the roofing areas are beyond the 20 right now by a couple of years, and some are coming up on like 25, 26 years. So sort of a combination, but we are at the end of the warranty period. Yeah.
Now, when the roofs last were replaced, there was probably different inspections that were done, and there's probably notes on how it is that they were done, so we'd be able to find out if there's asbestos in those roofs or any other material that we'd have to dispose a certain way that's going to cost us a lot more money. So we could probably go back to the records and find out wherever those might be to find out if there's any asbestos or any other hazardous materials to dispose of it. And then I know this is a 5-year plan and it's a lot of ifs needs to be replaced. So different things I see, like the concrete sidewalks and playgrounds and some of the lighting fixtures, if they do not need to be replaced within these 5 years, because we find they got put in, but, oh, they turned out to be good, what happens to that money? Does it have to be spent, or do we lose it?
I'm really not sure what the question is. These are just recommendations that the schools could prioritize over the next 5 years. Like Fred said, there are priority ones to five. Priority ones need to be done all the way to five, which are maybe aesthetics, like you mentioned, and that do not need to be done. Just total recommendations, very inflated costs, like they mentioned.
Okay.
So I don't want you to feel like in the next 5 years, we're going to be spending $72 million on these projects. That's not going to
I
happen.
thought this was kind of trying to get worked into the budget with everything in the next 5 years.
That is not trying to get worked in the budget. Every school district, every 5 years, must do a building condition survey. I believe Bayport's is due on March 1st. So this will go to the district, or this will go to the state, and these are recommendations. Some can be followed, some will be done, and then some will definitely not be done.
Great, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll turn it over to Dr. Harney for Mr. Frontero's fifth budget presentation. But Mr. Bortsfield, BVS, thank you guys so much. We appreciate your time tonight. Don't feel like you got to stay.
Thank you, guys. Just as a side note, so Mr. Frontera is going to review just the last couple of codes. We really have no update for you on foundation aid, as I had mentioned to you, so there is no new news on that. I would imagine within the next couple of weeks, for example, I know next weekend, I'm heading up to Albany. We actually have other staff also going up to Albany to kind of advocate for our district, so that is happening. And then I want to say the one house budget will probably come out, which is the next phase, probably in the next 3 weeks maybe. Usually it's the middle of March, and then the negotiations start after that. And we'd all hope for an April 1st budget, but I'm not sure that will come out of the governor's office either. But that's kind of where we are right now in terms of the process. So the numbers that you have been seeing in the past, nothing really is new. As I said, we're going to start to talk about some of the other bigger items for the March. We just want to kind of lay the foundation for everybody. We were hoping to hear something, but we're kind of in a holding pattern. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Fronterio, who will kind of walk us through this last part pretty quickly.
Thank you, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Harney. So welcome to workshop number 5. Tonight I'm going to finish covering the 2000 series budget codes, which all are involved with instructional services. I'm actually going to go over the mathematics and music, which I missed the last time. Ms. Steinberger mentioned that. So I wasn't going to let that be missed this time around, and an update on the tax cap calculation. So I promised to cover all these topics very briefly in this agenda. And of course, you always see our district goals, which are the reason why we come here every day and we try to do the best for every student in this district. Our calendar, we're moving along. So tonight, February 27th, budget workshop number 5. As you can see, in March we have 2, and the critical date will be April 16th, because we will have to adopt a budget by that time. That's the one that we will bring to our voters for a vote on May 15th. So there'll be a lot of heavy lifting between now and March 6th, the second presentation in March, because we will have to make decisions, and in some cases we're going to have to make assumptions about where we stand with state aid, because we might not know, and there might be a finished budget by then. So we're going to have to definitely make some educated guesses and some assumptions about what we should do. Right now, again, this is our summary of our 2 budgets, the current budget and the proposed budget. It's up by 3.57. Actually, it's actually by 3.51. I just wanted to show which area we were covering tonight. I'll get to that again. And we'll look at these series of codes. So in terms of what I missed back on the 6th of February was mathematics instruction. Again, and as you can see, the layout of this form is the budget function, the description, the adopted budget for 22-23, the actual expenditures in 22-23, the adopted budget in 23-24, juxtaposed with the proposed budget for 24-25, the dollar change and the percentage change. And of course, most important, I think, is the comments, because that gives you a real sense of what this is all about. So, and again, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is everyday instruction directly with our students. So in terms of mathematics in this area, we budget for 13.2 FTE teachers, humans, that are worth us, on textbooks, workbooks, memberships, conferences, travel, etc. Everything needed for direct instruction in mathematics is covered right here. Music instruction district-wide, again, here we have 11 teachers and half-time clerical support. It's important to note that while this is dropping, we're actually reflecting the fact that they have a retirement in this particular area. It's being replaced by an MA Step 1 salary, so that's in there as well, and we're recognizing that. With respect to the ones I'm going to cover tonight, all of them run from teachers teaching world language through BOCES special schools. And 2128 world languages, languages other than English. As you can see here, we're talking about 7.4 FTE teachers, all the textbooks, workshops, conferences, travel, etc., supplies, materials, again, everything to support direct instruction. Decreases basically related to change in staffing assignments that are assigned from one year to the next. In terms of business education, we have one teacher, 1.7 FTE, includes funding for textbooks and supplies, materials, and so forth. 2130 academic intervention services, and we have that through K to 8. And we have 8.6 teachers and 9 FTE teacher assistants, all directed to that endeavor, academic intervention. In terms of 2131, which is teaching enrichment, we have a slight small budgetary item of a 0.4 FTE teacher focused in on gifted and talented. 2132, teaching to the test, teaching testing, which is a BOCES service. Basically, there's no staff charged here. It's basically all of the BOCES testing services, including New York State testing, regional scoring, school data bank services, New York State data collections, etc. So it's all pretty much, for the most part, BOCES, no humans. 2137 teaches art and education. This is where we work with bringing in artists and residents, and BOCES usually supplies those, and we get BOCES aid and PTA donations to cover them. And again, it's pretty much one year to the next. May vary a little bit, but we've been budgeting at the $62,000 level. It seems to be working for, just fine. In terms of 2140, which is high school commencement, getting ready for our high school graduation, we are budgeting sufficiently at the $13,140 mark. 2144, my kids, that's our morning program and afternoon program. Currently we're budgeting at this particular level, although as we look at this, we know that the fees are not necessarily covering all the costs, and we need to maybe take a closer look at that as we move forward in the whole entire process. So user fees are applied against the program costs, but they're not covering it completely. 2145, teaching grade 6. We have our 6 FTE teachers and all supplies and things that they need for direct instruction. Basically, the percentage change there is related to salary. 2199, which is a huge piece of our budget, is teaching various functions and services. Here we have all the clerical staff assigned to each of the buildings. We have our teacher aides, 19 of those clerical staff, 57.17 FTE of teacher aides. And then, of course, we have codes that are broken down by building for things like paper and printing and textbooks and all kinds of things that they need to run their programs, but it's all centralized under this one particular code. And 2250 is teaching special education. Here we have our one director, our teaching staff of 36 FTE, and teacher assistants 31, and 3 clerical support. Basically, again, special ed has its own requirements, and we, again, are providing for all of those, and not including staff, but including placements in other places like BOCES or to another school district, and so forth, although we also take students in as well. So it basically covers everything with respect to special ed. And basically the increase there is pretty much salary changes. 2280, occupational education. Back in the day, I understand that we may have had 10, 11 students going. And about a year ago, at one of these board meetings, someone raised the issue about our students wanting to have more spots in that. So the board did the right thing and added it to the budget, so we'd be sure we'd be able to do that. Now we have 42 students in attendance, and they cover, various things. But as you can see from the BOCES Ed, they're beauty culture, aeronautics, culture, culinary arts, and things like that, that students are able to be exposed to. It's a great program. 2330 is our BOCES, basically our alternative high school program. The reduction there is just budgeting closer to what we seem to be spending at the moment. I'm looking at the next grouping of codes, which is the last, going from libraries to interscholastic athletics. 2610 is school libraries and audiovisual. Here we have salaries for 4.6 FTE teachers or librarians who are paid at teacher scale. Teacher aides, we have 3 assigned. And again, it involves all of the operations of our libraries, including the automated library system that we use and all the programs that students can access for information that are all driven by computers and things like that. Also, we have 2630 computer-assisted instruction. This all involves computers, but involves it in direct instructional services. So we have one FTE, one person, a clerical, who runs this entire operation for the most part. And within that, we have many of the computer replacements, our laptops for student use. This is all related to student use. And also things like the software licenses and spyware and all the things that you hear about when systems get hijacked. We have to be ready to make sure we're combating that. And that's driving some of those costs because we need to have high levels of spyware and things like that to manage it, but also computer replacements and the like. But again, all related to direct instruction. 2805 attendance, we're basically using a program from BOCES, Connect Ed. We actually are changing systems, and it's not likely that we'll be budgeting for this after this year. In terms of 2810, which is all guidance counselors, we have 4 at the high school, 2 at the middle school, and clerical support, 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and includes all the things that they need counselors to do their jobs and get things done. We have a half an FTE employee, elementary guidance counselor that is charged in the federal fund. It means that they're not carried by the general fund, they're carried in federal. But there's no reduction, just perhaps the way we are currently comparing one budget year to another, because we're not reducing any services. 2815 health services. Basically here we have our nurses, 7.4 FTE, and a teacher aide assigned is 1.0. And basically change there is, contractual salaries. 2820 psychologists and social workers. Here we have 8 psychologists, 5 social workers, now 1 in every building, which was a goal of the district. The decrease here, for the most part, other than changes in salary and staff, is that we have a retirement, and that retirement is being replaced by an MA Step 1 position. 2850 co-curricular activities are all of our stipends for hourly pay rates for co-curricular activities, and all basically based on our current contract. And 2855 interscholastic athletics, here for our wide breadth of athletic programs. And basically here we're covering, we have our athletic director, 1 clerical support that helps him run his shop, and then all the things that we need to run our athletics programs, including things like officials' fees, which are jumping in terms of cost, and they're reflected in that as well. So that basically covers all of our 2000 series budget codes. Now we've seen them all. We've seen all the functions, 1000 series for general operations, 2000 for instruction, 5,000 for transportation, 9,000 for employee benefits and debt service and the like. I promised that I would, if any changes to the tax cap calculation where it came to light, I would bring them forward. Since January 9th, there hadn't been anything, but following this, there is a slight change, and that is that the BOCES number for the BOCES cap exclusion, I actually got a final number from BOCES, so I worked that into the calculation. The only change it made is that we went from 3.91 tax levy cap to 3.92, changed it very slightly. And I can show you, if you look at the net BOCES net capital exclusion actuals for 24-25, that number was lower by about $4,000. I was estimating it to be $65,000. It is now the actual number that I received from Eastern Suffolk BOCES of $69,227. So I factored that in just to see what the change would be it changes it by, basically doesn't move the needle at all. But I wanted you to see what happened. Again, this is the exclusion for our debt service, which is part of the calculation. And I wanted to focus in on this for a minute, the actual expenditures we believe we will have in capital for 24, 25. Back in January 9th, when I was doing this, I thought I was being a little liberal with the 22 million one. But as things have progressed, I can already see, and discussions and meetings that we've had with say, regarding the energy performance contract, that the residual of the boilers and the windows will not likely be done until next school year, which means capital expenditures in 24, 25 will actually probably be more like $1.3 million, $1.4 million to do windows and boilers that were part of the EPC. So that number actually could have been higher, but again, I'm using a conservative number. Transfer to capital, we will have permission, the money that we transferred, that we were voter approved in 23, 24, takes a year, basically, to get things approved. So it goes up to Albany after all the drawings are done and everything, and we send it up to Albany. The wait's months and months. So those projects will probably fall into 24, 25. That's $500,000. Our smart bond expenditures, which we're waiting someday to get approval on, which hopefully we will. We might get that for 24, 25. That's $500,000. And our high school wellness room, we're looking now at the outside, but those costs could be higher than $100,000, at least from the information that we've been dealing with. So for the most part, what I thought was possibly a liberal number is probably spot on in terms of it. And the reason it's important is that calculation, that exclusion, help us go from a 2% tax cap to a 3.92 tax cap. In terms of looking ahead, and Dr. Harney has basically foreshadowed this in the next couple of weeks, the next couple of presentations, is we're going to need to make an assumption about what's happening with state aid, especially if we don't know what the final budget is going to be, and we're going to have to decide. So questions like, will final foundation aid remain at the current level, $11.6 million? Will foundation aid decrease as it's currently proposed in the governor's proposal? It's a $1.15 million decrease. Will we continue to have benefits of the increases in the categorical aids? Will something change between now and then? Right now, we're seeing an increase of about $467,000. Will we be able to realize that when the final budget is done? I think it's a pretty safe one, but still in all, we need to consider it. Should we assume no state aid increase at all and run with that ball and see what that means? Obviously, this is going to impact on the expenditure side. Right now, we're at 3.51, but as we look at what our revenue is going to be and where there might be a shortfall, we're going to have to go back and look at our budget and say, we're going to have to look at things that we need to cut or change in order to meet in the middle, because whatever we have on the expense side, we have to have on the revenue side, every dollar. So that's going to be an interesting part of the workshops in March, now that we've covered everything in terms of seeing on the expense side. And I've always touched on revenue, but now we're going to get serious because we have to decide, and we ultimately, the budget that we bring to our voters in May will have some assumptions that we decided no later than April 16th. And again, this is the same summary of our budget, currently voter approved versus the draft budget, and it's showing a 3.51. That's our starting point for where we go from this point on. Again, this is our 14-year history of budget to tax levy increases. As you could see, the numbers in parentheses were the allowable tax levy limit, and then the number that's next to it is the one we actually increased taxes by. Again, the board was trying to, wherever possible, be under the cap, which, has been helpful to our tax spreads, but also impacts on our bottom line from one year to the next. Looking at a 14-year average, again, it's really pretty impressive over the years. We jumped up. We pretty much fall in line, and it seems pretty reasonable over time. And again, April 12th, we'll be looking at all of these things, some in greater detail than less. Any questions?
Any trustee questions?
I have one question that's probably less of a Mr. Fronterio question, maybe more for Mr. Haas or Dr. Harney. So 2280 occupational education, the number that we've had is 42 for BOCES, and I know that this may not fluctuate that much, but just for accuracy's sake, I know the counselors are in the middle of scheduling right now. Do we anticipate having that many students apply to BOCES again, or is there a chance that number may be changing?
No, it seems like the number is going to be right around there again. I think that seems to be the sweet spot, so to speak, yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And remember, the number that is in here is the actual number. Remember, with BOCES, the way they do it, they do a 3-year average. So that number, you know, you're not really seeing the impact of last year's increase probably until next year, because then you'll have 3 years of it being at 42, 40, 40, 42, whatever it may be. So you're going to see that. So, so it's going to continue, even though our number may not change much, the 3-year average is going to go up just because we added more kids. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, I know we're excited that we're starting unified sports. Do we already have uniforms for those teams? And if not, would they need to be included in interscholastic athletics? And are the coaching salaries already in here for those teams?
For this year, they were already built into the budget. And then going into next year, they're already, if there's additional ones, they're built into that budget as well. Okay.
Any other trustee questions? Any community members, any questions? Mr. Frontier, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it. Moving on to consent agenda, are there any items the board would like to remove from the consent agenda and place on the regular agenda? Not seeing any, can I have a motion to approve consent agenda items J, K, L, M, N, and O? Ms. Pignataro, second by Ms. Saron. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to the regular agenda, can I have a motion to approve the real property tax law exemption for persons with disabilities and limited income? Well, Ms. Conley, second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion to approve the real property tax law exemptions for persons age 65 and over with limited income? Mr. Krug, second by Ms. Conley. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to our third item, can I have a motion to approve the Board of Ed meeting dates for the 2024-2025 school year? Ms. Pignataro, second by Mr. Krug. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. And can I have a motion to approve the first reading of policy 6010, fiscal controls, 6100, annual budget, and 6410, authorized signatures? Ms. Conley, second by Ms. Pignataro. Just quick, they're all have been reviewed by council and the committee, and they're all minor updates to all 3 policies. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve 5 nominees for the 7 seats for the Eastern Suffolk BOCES school year? We got Ms. Saron, second by Ms. Pignataro. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Open it up again one more time for community members or any new business. Not hearing any. Open it up to trustees for any new business. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Truly appreciate it. Can I have a motion to adjourn? And the boys basketball, boys are up 48-27 in the 4th quarter. All right, we'll take the win. All right, motion to adjourn. Ms. Pignataro, always by second by Mr. Krug. All in favor? Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.